Hey, Jack. Welcome to GoCast. How are you?
I'm good, Julian. Thanks for having me.
It's a real pleasure. I mean, we share a common passion, which is cybersecurity. And specifically, I think you're also producing some content. So it's really nice to see that we're relying on that. Do you mind by starting telling us who you are, what you do, where you're from?
Sure. Full name is Jack Brooks. I'm originally from Montreal. I started life as a hardcore programmer, have a degree in mathematics, in computer science, realized very quickly that I wasn't cut out for sitting behind a screen all day long. So, did all the support and networking. I was back in the day a Novell CNE, if anybody remembers that far back.
Yes. The NDS and all that stuff will come from Novo.
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
All the ConnectWise
Yeah.
email that went with it, and basically did all kinds of things. Got into leadership fairly early in my career. Worked in industries like advertising, publishing, factoring, heavy civil engineering. Done some nonprofit as well as business associations. Even dabbled a little bit in government. I fell for someone saying we're going to change how the public service works and make it more accountable. So I often refer to that as my 4 years of madness. Now I've landed here at Box Insurance, where I'm the head of Hackbusters. And what we do at Hackbusters is essentially we help clients and make sure that they can qualify for cyber insurance. So I work 100% on the technical side. We try to stay sort of arm's length to underwriting so that we can give, a little bit more unbiased advice and encourage clients like, tell me your real sins. And together we can work to close those gaps, because we find that's a lot more powerful, because we can then actually help versus, hey, we're trying to catch you. You don't have the right controls. And how do we catch you so we can deny a claim? This is more, how do we help you close the gap? So if you do have a claim, you get the money. We help with that. And then throughout the policy periods, clients can call my team and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing, X or Y. And what do you think? My MSP is saying I have to do this. Does it make sense? And we can provide that, that unbiased advice. And then, of course, if they have that proverbial bad day, then they can call us and we jump in immediately. One of the things I really like about what we do at Box is that when the client calls and says, I think I have a cyber event, there's no black mark against them that says, oh, that you made a claim. Now we have an excuse to raise your premiums. It only becomes a claim when they say, yeah, you know what, it's costing me, more than I thought, more than a deductible. It's more than I want to pay out of pocket. It makes sense for me to make a claim either financially or legally. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we'll hold their hand through that process as well. So that's kind of my journey. I mean, I've held roles, some pretty technical roles in the past, but for, I would say, probably the last 20 to 25 years, I've primarily been in leadership positions, including, sort of CXO type roles. Before I joined Box, I was the chief operating officer for the Real Estate Institute of Canada. So I had more than IT reporting to me. But what's really cool, I think, about what Box is doing and why I made that jump, and a lot of people ask me, like, hey, you were a CXO. What are you now?
What happened?
Is the opportunity to literally help thousands of small to medium-sized businesses around the world be safer and avoid what I call hitting the digital iceberg that is a cyber attack.
I like your approach, by the way, which is very based on, I guess, awareness / pre-breach versus just trying to use the hammer. What size of team do you have to cover for that expertise?
I guess it sort of depends on how you classify it. I mean, if you talk about people who are ready to pick up the phone and provide that initial assistance, we have about 25 of those folks globally that can do that. We've got a number of folks that have that deep technical experience that can dive in. Again, probably another 10 to 15 of those. And then I would say 3 people sort of like me, and I hate the term, but that trying to be that true virtual CISO, not just a converted sales executive that we often see like VCISO.
That's a really interesting point, because I always ask, how can you be VCISO if you never were a CISO before? Can you really be helping? Well, you can, for sure, at some point. You cannot buy experience, right? If you don't have it, you just don't have it.
Exactly. And it's the same sort of thing I tell people when I'm like younger folks, when I'm trying to mentor them, is that you can learn a heck of a lot more stuff than I know quickly. And if you really apply yourself, you can generate a tremendous amount of knowledge. But what you can't short circuit is wisdom. Right. And there's certain industries, obviously, if you work in an MSSP or an MSP, 1 year in one of those organizations tends to be more like 3 or 5 out in regular industry, because things just move so quickly and you're dealing with so many different things. But it's still time. And it's not about earning your keep or marking time and paying your dues. It's just having the knowledge and experience combined to create the wisdom.
I was exchanging with a CMO in another industry, and she was saying, "Well, I don't know why everyone turns to me when they have question about cybersecurity because I'm not an expert." But I'm like, "Well, you've been in cybersecurity for 20 years now. It's quite a lot of experience. Even if it's not technical experience, you still know more than a lot of people that are just started recently, right?" So yeah, it's really interesting, Jack. And how do you keep your team? Because you mentioned it, things are going so fast. How do you keep up with the new stuff? AI is putting everything on rails that is going so fast now. There's pros and cons, obviously, but I mean, how do you keep your team updated?
There's a couple of things. Unfortunately, there's no lack of real life experience. There are so many breaches that happen, so many attacks are happening. It's only going in one direction. So there's a lot of, on the job training that takes place because you're experiencing it. So what we try to avoid is pigeonholing folks. You're only handle the 65 stuff. Although, people do have specializations, we try very hard to cross-pollinate across the real life experience. Just so, people can see various things and, it keeps it interesting for them, right? Because, maybe someone's like super excited about the cloud technologies and understanding really how to harden a Microsoft environment, which most organizations don't do, of course. Or they're really excited about how to properly secure, Linux environments or firewalls or what have you. So, let them sort of explore that, make sure obviously we have coverage and then move people around. So that's one part of it is sort of that just because there's so many events, you can throw people in there, and as long as they've got the support, then the client's not suffering, right? You've got an
Yeah,
expert who really knows this stuff, but you have somebody working beside them that to
shadowing
help
or
exactly and doing stuff, right? And then the flip side to it is training. I think it is important still that people take courses and what have you, whether it's self-study or whatever. And at least once a year, I try to go, my stretch goal is 3 for each person. They take a minimum of 2 to 3 days. If they need to take a week, that's great, depending on what it is, and just focus on personal development. So they're taking off the sort of the
yeah.
rotation. So obviously if we have 47 things that all come in at once, then, someone may have to get pulled off their training, but it is absolutely last resort. And to date, I haven't had to. And just have them sort of like, tell me what you're going to do. If it's a formal course, fantastic. If it's some self-study stuff, fantastic. To me, the important thing is after you do that training, whether it's formal or informal, is how do we then quickly drive that into some real world experience so you
Yeah,
can actually flex it,
transform it. Yeah,
use it, right?
yeah.
Because we've all taken courses where you go, okay, oh no, this all makes sense. And then 9 months later, you go, yeah, I don't remember all that stuff I learned.
Yeah, you need actionable item.
And then VCSOs, it's really about trying to get out there. As you've mentioned, I'm pretty prolific out there on LinkedIn and other platforms and just trying to push that knowledge. By the time you become, in my opinion, a CISO or a VCSO or whatever we want to call it, it's really about giving back. Share your experience, share your knowledge. Once you get to a certain level, you can actually equate it to something that's happened before.
You and I have been in the space for a long time, and I always go back to the basic. It's sad, but a strong password and MFA is still something that will prevent a lot of stuff. Even it's boring, it's what it is, right?
Yeah, and that's what I tell people. It's AI is fantastic, and if we want to talk AI, we can. That's fine. But the AI tools today are not going to be the tools by themselves, right? There's all kinds of noise or talk about all the XE tools that can do all kinds of stuff, all the cliches like single pane of glass and all that sort of good stuff. Those tools aren't going to stop, in my opinion, 95+% of the attacks that happen today. It's the simple stuff. It's good, solid MFA, hopefully phishing resistant. Let's move away from
Yep.
text-based. It's hilarious, right? Those old tokens that we used to all carry, 25 years ago are now probably some of the safest things that we can use. I do a lot of work with small, mid-sized businesses, and they're still using traditional antivirus. Like, let's move into properly managed endpoint detection and response and XDR. It's having backups. A number of companies that I work with say, oh no, we've got great backups. And then they get hit with ransomware and the criminals are in there destroying their backups,
Yeah.
including probably the most well-known name in backups today, starting with one of the last letters of the alphabet. Criminals are just trampling over immutability. So having properly segregated backups and backing up your cloud, like, oh no, it's in Microsoft, it can't be corrupted. And patching. You know, in Canada, I don't know if it's still the same, but I know about a year ago, Canada is the worst in the world at patching our systems. I
True.
don't know why. Maybe because we think we're super nice, right? And nobody wants to attack Canada.
Well, patching is interesting. That's another thing that is very boring. And still, I mean, it's
Yeah.
one of the main place where all of the chaos start, I'd say. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. So, Jack, if you could go back in time 10, 15 years ago, what would you say to yourself knowing what you know now for your career in cybersecurity?
Oof. See, that's a hard one for me because I've always been very opportunistic, I guess. It doesn't sound like a good thing. I would say just remain flexible because that's, maybe double down on the flexibility. I don't know. I've always tried to be very flexible and just kind of see where the industry is going. Back in the day, I was very much like, oh, I'm going to be a hardcore programmer. I was going to be the network guy, the server guy. And that was exciting for a while. And then I think back and I've amassed a lot of knowledge by being flexible and being open to opportunities. So I've never had a 10, 15-year plan. I would say it's just remaining flexible and remember that technology is going to change. I remember back 25 years ago when the internet was becoming, the World Wide Web, became a real thing beyond a couple of web pages. And I thought, wow, kids are not going to understand technology at a fundamental level. And is the IT department going to die? Obviously, we see that, hey, it didn't. And while our kids perhaps really know technology better than we did when we were young, they don't understand how it works. And I tell people that are nervous about AI will disrupt everything. But it doesn't mean that they're not going to need people like us. It's just a matter of stay flexible. Just always learn. Don't ever think you know everything, because the minute you do that, you're done.
That's true. Thank you very much, Jack. It was a real pleasure to have you. Merci
Okay.
beaucoup. À bientôt.
Bonne journée.